fascinating thing with World War II is Airwar's intention was to knock out all the enemy defense positions on line, so the soldiers in the boats were told, cakewalk. When you hit the beach, there'll be a bunch of dead Germans, and the ones who are alive are going to be waving a white flag. You're going to jump off, get your boots wet, walk in, cakewalk. That's what they were told. They walked into the biggest foray of enemy fire ever known in the history of warfare. 88s, machine gun. I mean, they had spent 3 years laying out the beaches so they could have inflating fire and strafing fire. There's not a spot on the beach that did not have mines or barbed wire or had been zeroed in by machine guns in concrete bunkers and artillery set back off the front line. And what was intended to happen was all these planes would drop all these bombs and take out these bunkers, and then the infantry would walk in and take over the ground. What happened in reality was, because they ran most of the bombers perpendicular to the Atlantic Wall, some marauders up on Utah Beach flew parallel with it and did a much better job, but especially at Omaha, all the B-17 and B-20 bombers flew perpendicular to the front lines, meaning they had a very small window of release for their munitions. What happened psychologically was that most pilots in the airplanes flying had brothers, cousins, friends in boats below them. And because it was cloudy that day and their systems of dropping bombs was not super technological, they were afraid of dropping ordnances on their own guys and causing friendly fire flak and killing many of their own guys. And so almost to the plane, they held their fire for 30 seconds too long. So that not one Allied bomb dropped on the Atlantic Wall on Omaha Beach. Everyone killed cows 5 miles in. Now, the goal had been not only to take out enemy outposts, but also to take out mines on the beach. So the plan was to land on the beach, and it would be pocked with craters they could use as foxholes. When they got to the beach, it was like walking onto Waikiki. Not a hole on the beach, completely untouched because of the inaccuracy of the air war. So you can see the correlation between an effective air war and the production capacity of a ground war. You need both to be effective. You cannot win a war with air power alone. You have to have infantry on the ground, taking ground, covering ground, securing ground, taking enemies, moving deeper into the enemy territory. You can't win it with air power alone. But if the air power doesn't do its job, you slow significantly the production power of what the ground war can accomplish. It's the two working together that brings about a dynamic punch that can break through enemy lines. Fascinating story to illustrate that point. The Navy guns came in, the air fire was done, completely ineffective for at least Omaha Beach. Now Navy destroyers are sitting out there, Higgins boats are getting sent in, soldiers are getting dumped on the ground, absolutely decimated. Have you seen Saving Private Ryan? It's the opening scene there is a lot of what they were experiencing, and they're just getting the slats kicked out of them. And a Navy forward observer by the name of Montgomery George, there was two, Montgomery George and John Allen, jumps on a boat with the soldiers, goes inland, gets on the beach, running at the beach, hears a mortar round coming in, sees everyone, all the other troops around him diving face down. He dives face down on the beach. Boom, mortar round goes up, looks up, nobody else has gotten up, so he puts his head back down, boom, 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 nobody's moving. He's got his head buried in a guy's leg, and he looks up and he realizes every soldier on the beach is dead. He just threw himself amongst the bodies of a bunch of dead U.S. soldiers. That creeps him out, so he jumps up, he runs for the beach, he gets there, and he realizes the Navy guns aren't firing because the smoke, they can't see anything, and then where they are firing, it's not hitting anything. So he crawls up a bluff, gets to a spot where he can see, because the radios they had were line of sight, he makes line of sight contact with a destroyer, and he says, okay, hang on, I'm going to give you some coordinates here. He looks and he sees a pillbox that's firing, strafing machine gun fire on the beach, killing American soldiers, hundreds by the minute. He calls in the coordinates, and have you ever seen a Navy destroyer fire a 14-inch gun? I YouTubed it. It's a moment of worship. I mean, boom, it goes off, and you're like, dear God, forgive me. I mean, it's like God's bigger than that, and that's big, and it's scary. And they're like literally lobbing ordinances like this, like with the weight of they're like lobbing Volkswagen bugs across the channel. I mean, it's like, boom. It's crazy. And so he radios the destroyers, gives them a cord, and he goes, fire, and it's too far right, so he adjusts coordinates, fire, too far left. He makes the necessary coordinates, fire for effect. 46-round salvo from the Navy 14-inch guns comes down on that poor little pillbox. Now, here's what happens. The Navy artillery doesn't penetrate the bunker because it's 7 feet of concrete rebar, but the concussions from the rounds bouncing off of it killed everyone in the bunker. They go in, the Germans are like, blood out the ears, because the concussions alone takes out the bunker. Now, here's a crazy story. As he's radioing in coordinates to the Navy destroyer, he sees one pillbox that's just kicking the slats out of our boys. He's like, we got to take that out. So he radios in a salvo. They hit it. Later, they put together what happened. When he radioed their coordinates, so you got a guy coordinating air war, ground war strike. He coordinates it. A Navy round, they later figured out, went down the pipe of a German 88 barrel. Down the pipe, they figured out later the breach must have been open. German was reloading a round, and the Navy round hit the German round, and the two of them exploded, causing a massive fireball. Now, here's what's interesting. That fireball that exploded ran down the tunnel that they had built connecting all their pillboxes together, 250 yards down a tunnel, around a corner, through an open door into a buried magazine where Germans had thousands and thousands of pounds of ordnances, and blew that magazine sky high. So that he was watching, he said, fire for effect, and he sees the pillbox go, and then he explained it was like thunder. He was just like, wah! Literally, the explosion of that magazine threw 6-foot chunks of concrete the size of SUVs 300 yards into the French fields. I mean, it's an extraordinary display of firepower. The point? The more effective the coordination between air war and ground war, the more effective devastation gets wreaked on the enemy you're attacking. If we do not coordinate ourselves as a church, air war, ground war, I'm preaching my heart out up here, and you're doing your own thing out here, and we got programs and plans, and everyone's got their own causes, and we're all just kind of running around, but there's no concentration of force, we will not be as effective as if we were on the same page together, moving as one body on a given objective.